Hello everyone and welcome to the Bible Central Museum, where we do ask that you not touch anything, except for the subscribe button. These are 2 leaves from a poor man's Bible. You can't have them, they're mine. Now don't let the name Poor Man's Bible fool you, because a full copy of one of these babies would run you right around $25,000. These leaves come from 2 different editions of the Poor Man's Bible. This one is the Gospel of Matthew, and this one is from the Book of Acts. Printed by a man named Johann Froben in 1498 and 1495. That's right, these are over 500 years old. They were printed in Switzerland in the town of Basel, and they are delicious. The first edition in 1491 was actually the first pocket-sized Bible. It was about 4 inches by 6 inches. But as you can see, later editions ran a touch larger. The text here is in Latin. Froben used for his Bible different Hebrew and Greek manuscripts to correct the text of the Latin Vulgate, which had become corrupted over the centuries. And since these Bibles were printed within 50 years of Gutenberg's invention of the movable type printing press, this is known as an incunable. It comes from the Latin word meaning a cradle, since printing was in its infancy. The Froben Bible features the text of Scripture in the middle, and surrounding it, a commentary by the theologian Nicholas of Lyra, who lived in the 12 and 1300s. His commentary was very important because it emphasized a literal interpretation of Scripture rather than the metaphorical interpretation, which was more popular at the time. The commentary of Nicholas would later influence one Martin Luther, but that's a story for another time. Johannes Frobenus, as he could be called, or John for those who prefer a translation, did something quite revolutionary when he printed these smaller-sized Bibles. Instead of being made for liturgical use, this edition of the Scripture was marketed towards the scholarly of the laity. Instead of being made for the church, it was made for the regular person. Hence the name Poor Man's Bible, or as the people called it at the time, Biblia Pauperum, which still technically doesn't make sense because you did have to be somewhat well off to be able to afford one. It was the first Bible that was printed small enough to be easily transported, as most Bibles at the time were massive volumes that could weigh upwards of 20 pounds. You can see in the 1495, but especially in the 1498, where beautiful illuminations were added. You see, after the book was printed, someone called an illuminator would go page by page with colored ink. They would highlight particular letters, add drop caps, colorful decorations, even full illustrations. This gave the book a more handwritten feel. Remember, printing was a new and very expensive process, and many people still preferred their books to have a old-fashioned manuscript feel. After all, bookmaking was high art at the time. Now, Froben himself would later become friends with a man named Desiderius Erasmus of Rotterdam. Erasmus was a brilliant scholar with a mastery of languages and an incredible purpose to bring the words of God into print. Not from the Vulgate, though, but from the original Greek. After years of collecting Greek manuscripts and readings, Erasmus did indeed take the text of the New Testament out of handwritten form and onto the printed page for the first time. And who was the one who printed that New Testament? Well, that would be Johann Froben. Erasmus and Froben became lifelong friends, and together they printed the Bible, the writings of the early church fathers, and many other ancient writers as well. But by far, their most significant endeavor was the printing of the Greek New Testament. In time, the work of Erasmus and those that came after him would become known as the Textus Receptus, or the received text. And for the next 400 years, nearly every translation of the Bible used the received text as its base, including some that you might have in your home right now. Well, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for coming to the Bible Central Museum. Admission fees are a subscription, so how about you hop over to that button and give it a click. If you liked this video, then leave a comment down below telling us what you thought, maybe with a suggestion on what we should display next. And if we can afford it, maybe we'll do a video on it. Once again, thank you for joining us. The museum is now closing. You don't have to go home. You just can't stay here.